the old-fashioned "Mom, I need a drink" or that. We've used the cowbell a lot.
So when you moved up here, do people say, "You seem like you're from San Francisco"?
Studying for a California insurance license when you have an infant is not fun.
I feel like I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi when you say fax machine. I'm like, the California girls joining us. Linda Whitaker, do not California, my Idaho. Thanks for being here and making the time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So how long have we worked together? When did you join Hartwell?
September 2021, I was brought on during the acquisition of Deal Insurance. And so came on in 2021. I actually had applied with Hartwell in 2018 when I first came to Idaho, and at the time there just wasn't a fit, and so here we are today.
So, okay, we've worked together for 4 years, but turn back the clock. When did you get into insurance, and what did your first role look like?
So if you want to know the honest truth, my very first role in insurance is I worked at an internist office, and I did all these Medicare and Medicaid billing. And so I actually did that for about 10 years, and then went into P&C when I had young children and commutes were being interrupted by daycares calling saying, "Come get your child, they're sick." And so it was a local opportunity that I took on in 2003. My youngest child was a year old. Studying for a California insurance license when you have an infant is not fun. I don't recommend it. But started that. I worked in that agency for 15 years, ran multiple departments throughout that, but my ending was the small business unit, and decided to start a new life in Idaho, and here we are today.
So, okay, you're in Idaho now. What city in California were you in before?
So I was born in San Jose. I grew up in Chowchilla, which is a very small rural community. And then with my married life, I lived in the Gustine-Newman area, which is on the I-5 corridor. Most people recognize the name Santa Nella because you see it when you go down the freeway. And so in that area, farming, rural, just a small community. But I spent most of my life in those areas.
So when you moved up here, did people say, "You seem like you're from San Francisco"?
Well, I learned very easily. I did move to Oregon initially, so I got Oregon plates. So I was a little more accepted when I first moved into the Idaho area. What I usually told people when and unfortunately it's a stigma that comes with it, you say, "Oh, I'm from California," and they immediately say, "Oh," and I say, "Not that California." And so, yeah, it is hard to explain because California, there are areas of California that are very similar to the Idaho mentality.
Right.
And that's where I was from. So.
Well, I feel like, Linda, you got that cowgirl in you, and you were an Idaho girl who just happened to be in California. So I'm super glad you're part of our team. So you worked at that agency for 15 years.
I did.
What things are different and what things are similar to like kind of when you started to today?
Insurance is ever changing. Nothing stays the same. It changes by the minute. So, something that a carrier might say today is good, in 3 minutes it's not. It's just constantly moving. You feel like you're on a hamster wheel. That you're constantly going on that hamster wheel. So the difference is, I'll say bureaucracy. I'll try to say bureaucracy. California has a lot more red tape, and so it has been nice to not have as much of the hoops to jump through, but they're still out there.
Right. And you might remember this time as well. You talk about changing and that wheel turning. I remember a rep walking into our office and saying, "We want to write this type of work comp." And as you know, in California, there's a lot more work comp carriers. And this was a huge moment because there was a gal in our office that said, "Okay, I'll get a submission printed up and hand it to you before you leave." And he said, "No, I'm only going to let you do it if you go on the internet and plug it in." This was a huge deal. Because now we do online submissions all day long, but back then, going on the internet and putting insurance information wasn't what you did.
Yeah, when I first started, obviously being in a rural area, we had a lot of farms, dairies, ranches, things like that. Dairies were work comp 1-1 renewals, and I can remember a teammate of mine and I would go on New Year's Day. We'd meet, 11:30 at night, New Year's Eve. So we never went out on New Year's Eve. And we had 6 fax machines in the office, and we each took 3. And we just ran submissions through all night long to get our submissions in to block the markets.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So back in the day, when you did print everything, complete submissions were, anywhere from 15 to 45 pages, and you're constantly just, hearing the beeps of the fax, and you'd go to the next fax machine and you had everything just ready to go, so that you could hit that market on 1/1.
I feel like I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi when you say fax machine. I'm like, what's that meme that says that's a name I haven't heard in a long time?
Well, unfortunately, I remember them when they were rolled paper. So they've changed. They've come a long way. And a lot of places don't have them, of course, anymore. But in those days, you didn't have, you had some email, you had some internet access, but carriers weren't on that yet. So everything was sent directly to an underwriter through an old, younger people, an old-fashioned way. But we made it work.
Right.
And you blocked your markets. You got everything done you were supposed to.
Well, and you and I have bonded over all the insurance carriers that did exist and now have been rolled into others. So, Golden Eagle that we both worked with is now Liberty. And I know you brought your Fireman's
Fun. Yeah, I did. I brought my
bell.
Fireman's Fun cowbell. This cowbell I've had for years. As a matter of fact, I was laughing this morning because I did I wrote my name in it because, carriers used to hand out a lot of stuff, some of it good, some of it not so good, and people would snag it off your desk. And so, I laughed because, I had branded it in essence to make sure everyone knew it was mine. My kids have used it with sick kids, the old-fashioned, Mom, I need a drink, or that. We've used the cowbell a lot.
So I guess was this an ag thing? Were they doing
So
ag?
Fireman's Fun actually in California was, at that time, it was more personalized, but they did have some ag,
Okay,
yes. So.
okay. Because whenever you say cowbell, isn't there an SNL skit like more cowbell?
Oh, heavens, yes.
That's what it
Blue
makes me
Oyster
think of.
Cult. You
That's what it
cannot.
makes
You've
me
got to
think
have
of.
more cowbell.
And who did Fireman's Fun turn into?
I didn't do my homework. I don't remember.
I'm trying to remember.
They did merge. I want to say it's Travelers, but I'm not 100%.
Okay.
It's been, they've been gone a long time. And we've talked about the Golden Eagle, and just the different mergers. One of the things I say in insurance, not carrier driven, but especially underwriters, because we work so closely with underwriters, don't burn your bridges, because you will run into them again. Today they might be with, Travelers, and next week they might be with Liberty Mutual. So you want to keep those relationships open, and
Yes.
And build the trust. One of the things I've always said I'm going on 22 years next month of, being in this industry and being licensed for P&C. And I look at it as, I don't consider myself a salesperson. I don't consider myself an agent. I consider myself an educator, because I'm constantly educating people on, what they're doing, what they're buying, why they need it, the holes in the coverage. That's been my, I'll say, claim to fame, is I love being able to tell someone, you'd be helped by having this. And then, and when it feels really good is when they come back and say, I have a claim, am I covered? And obviously, we're not going to necessarily say, yes, you're covered, but when they are, they're thankful, they're appreciative. And so it's a huge thing. My goal is always to build trust. That's,
I like what you said about your training and assisting. So if one of our, we work together, so if one of our mutual clients called and said, hey, am I covered? Should I say to them, I don't know, but I think Linda said you were.
Please don't. Please don't. As an insurance agent, and goes so far beyond insurance, is, whether it's a car loan or a bank loan, there are so many fine prints in anything, and an insurance policy is a contract. And so that contract could have things that me as an agent, even though I've been in the industry for so many years, you as the agent in the industry, there's things we can miss or that we don't know. And so carriers have adjusters that go through that, and they determine if that coverage would apply. Because there are times, I always use I call them cherry pickers, but the cherry picker on a tree trimming company is, there is coverage for that, but it depends on what it's being used for. If it's driving down the highway, it's going to fall on the commercial auto. If it's parked with, I call it the legs out, then it's probably going to fall under their GL or their equipment. So there's so many factors that come into play. So we, as an industry, we don't typically tell a client, yes, you're covered, or Brian said you're covered. We're more so, we're going to work it with an adjuster, and they're going to work with this. But we're going to hold your hand while we do that.
Right. Help understand those nuances as best we can.
Exactly.
Now, so by the time you showed up to Hartwell, I felt like you were already, had made your way in the industry and knew your coverages and knew the landscape. Do you have anyone that was maybe in your first part of your career that you felt like helped make you the professional you are today?
So the agency in California had three, the original owner, his son, and he brought in 2 partners. There was a partner, Bill Fitzer. Bill Fitzer took me under his wing. He taught me how to walk out buildings without using what we called a wheel at the time. He just really helped me learn and understand. He challenged me. He pushed me when I would question a coverage. He'd say, I want you to take a class. And so my first like 6 continuing education classes were on commercial auto and garage keepers, because there were too many questions. There were too many moving parts. And I do feel today I know garage keepers very well because I did that, because I invested in myself. But he really pushed me. He was great for our agency. He did pass away, sadly, during that time. But I got to know him as a friend, and he's definitely one of the biggest mentors. I've had a lot. I've had carrier mentors. I've had broker mentors. I've made relationships where I can pick up the phone and call. And I've done it even now, is I'll call an old associate and say, "Okay, I want to pick your brain." And so, but again, that goes back to that building trust and building those relationships.
So I know you've kind of helped lead a charge internally at our office, saying, hey, when we get our employees together, we should have like a speaker come in and talk about mental health and how important that is. As you look back at your last 20 years of your career, what kind of seasons have you felt like have been really valuable to you personally that have helped spur you on as a person and as a professional?
Well, I think we're all human. To me, when I have an employer that cares, and I don't mean Brian coming in and asking me daily, how are you doing today, but somebody who actually shows they care, that makes you a better employee. With the Hartwell, we're of course employee owners, so we have an investment in that. I am pushing, our employee connection this coming in May for mental health awareness. I am pushing a benefit that we provide to our employees for help, for whether it's counseling or financial or helping you. I'm at an age where my mother is getting older. I'm having to help more. So I have the ability to have resources that my company feels that I'm valued enough that they provide those. So I think it's huge when you feel valued. And I think the more you have companies that do that and make their employees feel that way, the more you retain employees. I mean, we're in the business, we retain our customers. Well, an employer needs to retain their employees to keep the best employees. And by doing the outside of the box things, that's when you've hit the jackpot.
Right. So as you talk about employees feeling valued, that seems like something you can't chart very easily. Like, you can't say to a person, do you feel valued, and understand it. Every single person will have a different definition. Do you think that's fair to say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as you work for an employee-owned company, what would you say are kind of some of your highlights of
I think the difference from going from an agency that was, because I've been, with other agencies in between my Idaho and California transition, we'll say, and the other ones were 2 larger corporations. I became a number, especially with one of them. Not as comfortable because, I want to be able to, and you and I do it quite often, we joke about your choice of vehicle, things like that. I want to be able to do that. I don't want to have just that number. They don't know who you are. My son had a surgery recently, and I got a beautiful plant delivered to me. And it's the care.
Very cool.
It's that you feel like you're part of something. You feel like you're family. And so with the employee owner side of it, we all care. You're just an employee. If a contingency check comes in, the owners are getting that. You're not necessarily, or you might get a pizza party. We are trying to really show our employees and our owners that we're valued and that we're a part of it. Now, am I able to go to you and say, I think we need to change this? No, I can have my opinion, but it doesn't mean I'm going to make the decision, but I am part of that, or I'm considered during that. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it seems like there are a lot of circumstances where folks don't need their idea to be implemented as much as they just want to be heard within the group to have that idea have some impact long term.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard to keep, 90 people? It's hard to keep everybody making all the choices, but having people feel valued is super important.
Well, and I think that's a lot of it is you don't want, no person wants to go and voice a concern to management and feel like there's going to be a repercussion. And so I think that is the biggest difference with being an employee owner, is that we can go and speak our concerns or ideas or things. Doesn't mean they're going to be put in place, but they listen. They're hearing what we're asking for, and we have made changes because of those, those discussions.
Right.
But you don't, and there's a lot of employers that if you went and said, I want to change the lunch hour from 12 to 1 to 1 to 2, that could be a problem. And so that's they're open. That's the best way to put it.
So like if you weren't at work, what would Linda Whitaker be doing with her free time?
Well, I raised country. That's so I like to be outside. I like my gardening. In my younger years, we had cattle and horses. My kids were raised horseback. I have one son that does pretty much actively participate in rodeo. So outdoors. That's probably the biggest thing. Somebody said something the other day to me that resonated hugely. Is I'm a white collar girl with a blue collar heart. Because I'm outside. I'm not, this is me. I'm blue jeans and boots or shoes. I'm not, you'll very rarely see me in a dress. If you do, take a picture because it does not happen often. We had a conversation yesterday. I don't do downtown Boise. I don't do parking garages. I don't like to.
Tell the story of the parking garage.
Okay, so the story was, and Tia in our team can vouch for this because she has to this day not let me live it down, but we had a contractors conference downtown in a parking lot or parking garage. I gave myself plenty of time to get there, which I always do because I am one that I do not want to be late. I found where I needed to be. I went up the ramp and apparently turned the wrong way. The janitor flagged me down to turn me around. Now, mind you, you know what I drive. I don't drive a little car. I drive a full-size pickup. So they're not downtown efficient, we'll say.
So you went
the wrong way.
The arrow's saying go back this way.
Yep,
You went
I went
back
the wrong way.
Okay.
So I had to get turned around. Then I finally got on the right place, and then parking again with the size. And Miss Tia had seen me pull in the parking garage, and she stood and watched the whole thing. And basically, I gave her a comedy show that day. And then she had to tell the entire conference that all you had to do for entertainment was to go to the parking garage. So yeah, I don't do well with it.
That's too funny. I will say one of the things back when I did have my Prius is a small vehicle is so easy to park.
Yeah.
But then when I would rent a big Yukon, this thing's like a battleship. How are you supposed to fit this in one part? So now I see why these guys with trucks are like, oops, I just pulled over and blocked 2 spots.
Yeah.
I'm on to you.
Well, and a lot of people complain. I am a full pull-through parking person because it's easier. I would rather pull out of a parking lot or parking space than to try to back out and watch for kids or people or cars. And I know there are a lot of people that don't like that, but it's what my comfort level is, and I can pull in, or I can also, I'm very good at backing in too. So, I have mastered that. But, again, I think that's just, I've pulled loads of cows in trailers, and, I definitely, I can handle a big vehicle. I don't handle parking garages.
So we got to make a rule. If you're pulling cows, we're going to call you. But if we're going into Boise at a restaurant, you have to
Somebody's driving.
You've got to write chocolate.
Or I'm figuring out how to use an Uber app.
You're going to the next level, getting an Uber app, Linda.
I have the app. I just don't do anything with it.
So let's do this. As we wind down, I want you to think about advice you would give to people who are new in the industry, who are new or maybe might be considering a career in the insurance industry. Let's kind of close with that. What would your advice be?
Well, I've said this, in my California position, I was actually involved in a lot of the hiring. And what I've told people, and I've said this, so I started in this industry in my 30s. I'm not going to give away my age, but in my 30s. And you don't come out of high school saying, I want to be an insurance agent. You don't. They don't talk about it. They know nothing about it. I was one that I always read my insurance policies because that's just who I am. It's what I want to know. I want to make sure I'm covered, things like that. But I think for the youth and for younger people is think about it, because it is a good career. I mean, I've been doing it, for 22 years. It has been, something for me. I joke, and you've heard my joke is, some days insurance is not fun. And I always joke I'm going to go to Home Depot and water plants because they don't talk back. But it has been a really good career for me. It's just a challenging. And if you like to challenge yourself, don't give up, because there are times you're going to, true story this morning, my update took over 2 hours and we had to force it to let me work. And so things happen.
Right.
You take your patience. Sometimes that's not the easiest, and you just keep trying, because it is a very good career. It's like medicine. I don't see it going anywhere, no matter what happens with, AIs or things like that. It is definitely, yes, we're going to have changes, but I don't see it going away.
Right. Linda, good stuff. I appreciate your answers. It was a lot of fun to interview you. I look forward to the next time.
Thanks.